Hi, welcome you all to the video on Unit 4, Part 3. Here we'll be discussing about the problems on EMF. We are going to know about the time harmonic field, and we are going to know about the concept of phasors, which is important for our subsequent topics. And then we are going to study about the problems on phasors. So in the previous video, we have come across different types of EMFs which are induced by Faraday's law. There are three different scenarios that we have known so far for an induced EMF. So where the first scenario is when a constant loop is present in a time varying magnetic field, and that is called as transformer EMF. The second case is where a moving coil plays in a static magnetic field, which is called as motional EMF. And the case 3 is where a moving coil is placed in a time varying magnetic field, which is the combinational effect of both transformer EMF and motional EMF. So here, coming to the problem on EMF, we have a conducting bar which is uh, existing from point P to point Q, which is placed along the x-axis and parallel to x-axis across the two conducting layers or rails, which are oriented along the y-axis. So this is being sliding over the two conducting rails separated by a distance x is equal to 6 centimeter, and this moves with a velocity u in the direction y, and there is applied magnetic field B, which is pointed inwards in this particular case, which is in the z direction. So here we are going to look at three scenarios where we need to find out the induced voltage. The first case is the bar is stationed at y is equal to 8 centimeter, and it is placed in a magnetic field which is varying with respect to time. So this is a case of a transformer EMF will be induced in the first case. In the second case, the bar is sliding at a velocity u and is present in a constant magnetic field. So this is a case of motional EMF. The case 3 is bar slides at a velocity u and it is also placed in a time varying magnetic flux. So therefore it is a combinational EMF. So by knowing all these three information, let us take up the cases one by one to find out the induced voltage in the bar. So the case 1, let us try to write all the known factors. That is, now in the first case, the bar will be positioned at 8 centimeter, which means if I have to write it in SI units, I can write it like this. The bar is stationed at Y, and the magnetic flux that is induced or being applied is 4 into cos 10 raised to 6t along the direction AZ milliweber per meter square. So these are the two things that are known to us. Now, in order to find VEMF, the VEMF for the transformer EMF, as we know, it is the integral over a surface del B by del T dot ds. Del B by del T is because the flux density is varying with respect to time. Now, we need to find the integrand in order to find the induced EMF. So the integrand involves the partial differentiation of flux density with time. So let us try to find out that. So it is 4 milli. So let us consider the milli also. 4 milli, and the differentiation of flux density with respect to time gives us the differentiation of cos, which is sine 10 raised to 60 into 10 raised to 6 in the direction AZ. So this can be written as minus 4 into 10 raised to plus 3 sine 10 raised to 60 along the direction AZ. So this is del B by del T. So we need to find out the surface which will be contributing for the induced EMF. So the surface which will be contributing for the induced EMF should always be in the direction of the other part of the integrand, which is in the direction of az. So the surface which is along the direction of az, as we know already, it is dy into dx in the direction az. This is because of the fact that the dot product should always lead to a maximum value whenever we are trying to find out the surface integration. So therefore, the surface that will be contributing for induced EMF is dx dy in the direction of az. So let us now we know what is del b by del t and ds. So we shall substitute in the above expression. That is v EMF is equal to minus of the integration. Now the surface integration will be on x and y. We shall write the limits later. Coming to the integrand, it is 4 into 10 raised to 3 sine 10 raised to 6t dx dy. So the x is extending from the length of the conducting bar will be extending from 0 to 0.06 because the conducting bar lies across the two conducting rails separated by 6 centimeters, and y, as we know, it is positioned at 8 centimeters. So y limits are from 0 to 0.08. Now applying the integration, minus into minus becomes plus 4 into 10 power 3. The sign part is also independent of the integration, so we can take it outside. So integration is simple in this case, where x integration with respect to x is just x with the limit 0.06, and integration of y is simple, y with the limits 0 to 0.08. So this gives us 4 into 10 raised to 3 into 0.06 into 0.08 sine 10 raised to 6 t. So this gives us a value V EMF is equal to 19.2 sine 10 power 6 t volts. This is the answer for the first scenario where we are trying to find out the transformer EMF induced in the conducting bar when it is stationed at one particular point in a time varying magnetic flux. Coming to the case 2, where we know the conducting bar is moving with a velocity u in the direction ay, and it is placed in a static magnetic field of with respect to time, which is 4 az milliweber per meter square. So this is what we know. The expression for motional EMF is given by V EMF is equal to minus of the integration over a path L u cross B dot dl. So we need to observe that in this particular expression, the negative sign is implicit and it is taken care by this cross product of u cross b. So the Lenz law negative expression will be taken care by the cross product. So therefore, this is plus integration over a path u cross b dot dl. So let us see how to use this information, or you can still keep this negative sign. Let us see how to deal with this. So the minus of the integration, we need to find the integrand first. So let us try to do that. U cross B we need to find out, which is along the, let us keep it in a generalized way. U is oriented along Y and B is oriented along Z. The cross product leads us to UB in the direction of AX. So we need to consider the path which is along the AX direction in order to make this dot product a maximum one. So it is minus of the integration. So dl will be of the type dx AX. So we need to know that is UB AX dot dx AX. So now this integration will be for x, so for a length 0 to L. So we know that it is from the point or the over the length of the conducting bar, that is from 0 to L. So this can be written as minus UB, the integration with respect to the x or x is this x with the limit 0 to L. So this is going to give us ub into s. So what is u? The magnitude of u is 20. There is a negative sign multiplied by, so this is multiplication. B, the magnitude of B is 4, and the length of the conducting bar is 0.06 in SI unit. So this is going to give us a value of induced voltage as minus 4.8 millivolts. I hope this is simple enough to understand. So let us move on to the case 3, where we will be knowing about the case 3, that is combined effect of both motional and transformer EMF. So in this scenario, we know that the velocity is 20 along the direction of AY, and the applied magnetic field is 4 into cos 10 raised to 6 t minus y milliweber per meter square along the direction AZ. So this is what we know. So let us see how to solve this. From the expression of the combined EMF, V EMF can be written as minus del B by del T dot ds, which is the surface integration, plus, so as I said, the integration or the Lenz law will be taken care by the cross product, so it is u cross v dot dl. So it is written like this. So how to find out this? Let us do and substitute here. So del B by del T, the differentiation should be with respect to time. So let us do that. It is 4 into 10 power minus 3 because it is milli, and we need to take the surface integration, so we'll do that. So 4 into 10 raised to minus 3 into sine 10 power 60 minus, let me keep this as y dash because I don't know where the conducting bar is positioned at, therefore we have kept that y as just y dash, which is a dummy variable, into 10 power 6 dot ds. So as we know, the ds will be of the form dy dx. So this will be, the surface integration can now be written as integration of x from 0 to 0.06, and y will be from 0 to y, because y is an arbitrary position, so I don't know that y where it is positioned, therefore I'm just writing a y dash extending from 0 to y, less, now u cross, coming to u cross b. So this dl will be in the direction x, that we know. So here in this case, it will be from 0.06 to 0, or if you put a negative sign, you can interchange the limits. So it is 20 ay cross 4 into 10 power minus 3. So this is cross, please note that. 4 into 10 power minus 3 cos 10 raised to 60 minus y along the direction is it. This whole thing dot producted with dx ax. So while we do this, we are going to get 240 cos 10 raised to 60 minus y dash with the limits 0 to y. After applying the limits on x also, we are going to, I'm directly writing this, so you can simplify and try to find out 80 into 10 raised to minus 3 into 0.06 into cosine of 10 power 6 t minus y. This is the answer that we are going to get. This is equal to 240 cos 10 raised to 60 minus y minus of 240 into cos 10 power 60 minus 4.8 into 10 power minus 3 cos 10 power 60 minus y. So in this case, you can see here clearly where these two terms have the common factors, that is cos into 10 power 60 minus y, but the coefficient of these this cos function, one is 240, the other one is 4.8 milli. So this particular part is negligible. That means the induced voltage that is arising due to the motional EMF is negligibly small when compared to that of the transformer EMF. So therefore we can approximate the VEMF in this case as this 240 cos 10 raised to 60 minus y minus 240 cos 10 raised to 60. So this will be in volts. So we are approximating it. Further, you can use cos A minus cos B formula and further simplify this, or else you can stop at this stage itself. So these are the three scenarios of what we have come across in study of EMF. Here we have taken a simple example to illustrate all the three scenarios, how to find out the induced voltage. Now let us continue and see the second topic of this video, where we are going to discuss particularly about the time harmonic fields. So what do you mean by harmonic fields? Harmonic fields are ones which are varying periodically or sinusoidally with respect to time. So, so far when we say the uh, time varying magnetic field will produce a time varying electric field, that time variation could be arbitrary in nature, which means the field could vary in any function of time. But in this particular scenario, from now on, whenever we talk about time varying fields, we always uh, implicitly talk about the time harmonic fields, which means the fields which are varying periodically or sinusoidally with respect to time. Because it is easier, we are trying to understand the concept of electromagnetic waves, as we know they are periodic in nature. Especially we are going to consider the sinusoidal nature of the electromagnetic waves. So in order to analyze any sinusoids, we need a computationally easier method to understand the sinusoids. Therefore, we are going to express them in the form of what are called as phasors. So phasors are very important concept, because all the while when we talk about the fields, we needless have to say the implicit function of time, thereby reducing the computational complexity in understanding the electromagnetic waves. Therefore, we are going to introduce you to the concept of phasors. So now let us see what do you mean by a phasor. So you can see here in this particular small GIF, where the circular motion of the vector, you can see the vector is pivoted at the origin with extending to certain amplitude. When we change the angle of the position of this vector in across the circle, we are going to get a sinusoidal variation on the time axis. Therefore, it is easier to represent a vector which is subtending an angle with respect to a reference axis uh, for a sinusoid, instead of writing the entire sinusoid. So let us see how to represent a phasor. To understand the phasor, we need to know the concept of complex numbers, where the complex value z is represented as magnitude into phase part, where magnitude is r and the phase part is e to the power j pi. And this can be expressed in the form of r multiplied by cos phi plus j sin phi. So this is by Euler's formula. You know, very popular formula, which is Euler's formula. So using the Euler's formula, we can write the any complex number in polar form in this expression. Likewise, we have the rectangular representation of z. So z is written as x plus jy, which is nothing but x r at an angle phi. here, if phi is a function of theta and omega, theta plus omega t, which means I assume this particular uh, complex number or a sinusoid is having a frequency of angular frequency of omega, which is varying with respect to time, and it's with an initial phase of theta. So this r into e to the power j phi is expressed as r into e to the power j theta into e to the power j omega t. So this can be further said as or split as the real part of the complex number and also the imaginary part of the complex number. So the real part of r into e to the power j phi is written as r into cos of omega t plus theta, and likewise the imaginary part will be r into sine of the angle omega t plus theta. So in general, a phasor could be a scalar or a vector if vector A, which is a function of all the three positional variables, that is x, y, z, and along with time, is a time harmonic field, and the phasor form of A is represented as A suffix as, which is a function of only the position, which is x comma y comma z, while the variation with respect to time is implicit. So therefore, I can express any vector A in the form like it's the real part of the phasor as into e to the power j omega t. So this is the case when the given vector is of cos term. Likewise, if it was a sinusoidal variation, then instead of real part, we would have written it as the imaginary, that is Im of as into e to the power j omega t. So we will see how the introduction of phasors has led to the change in the Maxwell's equation. So wherever we are making use of the vectors, the vector for electric flux density, magnetic flux density, and electric field intensity, and magnetic field intensity, and there is one more vector called conduction current density. So wherever we are using all these vectors, they will be replaced with their phasors with no much ado for with respect to time. So it is del dot d is equal to del dot ds will be replaced, which is equal to rho vs. Likewise, it will bring about the change. We have to notice one thing over here. Whenever we have introduced a phasor, in the case where the d can be represented as the real part of ds into e to the power j omega t, we can this will give us some flexibility in writing the given field using its phasor, and thereby it will also make us to reduce the Maxwell's equation into a very useful form that will help us in substituting the time variation easily. So let us look at how to do that. So whenever we write in phasors, if we have the partial differentiation with respect to time of d, in like we have in this case, in the case of the the variation in the Ampere's electrical law, then we can replace it with d by dt of real part of ds into e to the power j omega t, which is represented in its phasor form. So this can be written as real part of dou by dou t of ds e to the power j omega t can be written like this. So the partial differentiation with respect to time will lead to j omega into ds, where ds is only the function of x comma y comma z. So wherever the partial differentiation with time is present, we can simply replace it with j omega. That is the idea of using the phasors, which will reduce the complexity in understanding the Maxwell's equation. Then coming to the integration part, if I have to integrate d as such any vector with respect to time, then it can be replaced as real part of ds into e to the power j omega t dou t. So this will lead to ds over j omega. So this is what we get whenever we are going to integrate with respect to time. So this will reduce the complexity in writing the expression. So using the same scenario or analysis, or having the understanding of this uh, reduction in the expression, we can see that the Maxwell's equations have undergone these changes and they have been made simple to understand. So as we can see here, that is del cross E, which is actually a vector in vector representation, would look minus del B by del T by Faraday's law. So here del B by del T is replaced with j omega and ds, that is a phasor representation of magnetic field magnetic flux density. And coming to the Ampere circuital law, del cross H is equal to j plus dou by dou t of d. This is what we know. So dou by dou t is replaced with j omega and d is ds. So this makes the Maxwell's equation simple. And let us see and look at one of the examples, like how to find out the phasors of the given uh, field and also how to solve a problem. So here is a case where the electric field and magnetic field expressions are given, which are moving in the free space. So here E is given with the magnitude and its variation with respect to time, and its direction is along the a phi direction. Likewise, the magnetic field intensity is given as a function of time, and it is the positional orientation is also given, which is along the arrow direction. So we need to express the above two expressions in their phasor form, and we also need to find out the values of the constants, that is the magnitude of the field h naught, and also we need to find the value of beta. So let us try to use the Maxwell's equation in the previous slide to solve the expression. So using the phasor representation, the field E can be written as E, the real part of, because it is a cosine function, Es, that is a phasor of electric field intensity, into e to the power j omega t. Similarly, H is written as real part of the phasor of H into e to the power j omega t. And now we shall see that omega, in the place of omega we have 10 power 60. So let us write that this is a known factor. And now we will try to recognize what is Es here. That is, removing the e to the power j omega part, we can write the phasor of E as 50 over rho into e to the power j beta z along the direction a phi. And likewise, the phasor of H is written as H naught over rho into e to the power j beta z along the direction 0 cap. So this is written. So for the free space scenario, we shall see how the Maxwell's equation will get modified using this scenario and using the phasors. For the free space, as we know, rho v is always equal to 0. There is no conduction in free space, so sigma will be equal to 0, conductivity will be 0, epsilon is equal to epsilon naught, and mu will be equal to mu naught. So by using all these values and also phasors, I can write del dot ds is 0 because rho v is 0, and this leads to also that del dot E is equal to 0, which implies del dot Es, that is in its phasor form, is also equal to 0. Similarly, del dot B is equal to 0, which will imply del dot H is also equal to 0. This is epsilon times del dot E. This is mu naught times del dot H. So this implies del dot H is also equal to 0. Other two Maxwell's equation. Let us try to write that. Del cross H is equal to sigma E times, that is conduction current density, plus epsilon times del dou by dou T of E. So this can be replaced with del cross of, in its phasor form, del cross of Hs. This will go to 0 because sigma is 0. Dou by dou T can be replaced with j omega. Epsilon naught and E can be replaced with phasor Es. Similarly, del cross E, which is written as minus dou by dou T of B, which is B is mu naught times H. So it is mu naught times of dou by dou T of H, can be written as del cross Es with the right hand side, dou by dou T replaced with j omega mu naught times H suffix S. That's phasor form. Now we need to find out what are the values of H naught and beta by making use of the above Maxwell's equation. How to find out? Let us see that. By making use of the Maxwell's equation for Ampere's circuit law, del cross Hs is equal to, we know what is Hs, it is del cross of H naught by rho into e to the power j beta z into a rho cap. We need to find out the curl of this particular vector. How to do that? We need to apply the curl effect, that is the determinant 1 by rho into determinant of a rho. The first row consists of all the directional components, that is a rho into a phi, a z. Then comes d by d rho, d by dou phi, dou by dou z. And here comes the coefficient of h along rho direction, which is h naught by rho into e to the power j beta z. This is 0 and this is also 0. By expanding this determinant, we are going to get j h naught into beta over rho into e to the power j beta z along the direction a phi. So we are going to get this as the expression for del cross H, and we need to substitute this, or we are going to equate this with j omega epsilon naught into Es, and we know what is Es. So it is j into h naught times beta over rho into e to the power j beta z along a phi direction is equal to j omega epsilon, where Es is, as previously seen, it is 50 over rho into e to the power j beta z along a phi direction. So equating the left hand side with right hand side, we are going to get h naught times beta is equal to 50 times omega epsilon naught. Similarly, applying del cross Es is equal to minus j omega mu naught into Hs. By doing the above curl effect on Es, we can obtain minus j beta times T by rho into e to the power j beta z along the direction a rho is equal to minus j omega mu naught into h naught by rho into e to the power j beta z along a rho direction. So we get this as the expression like how we got. So let us mark this as equation 1. So here equating on either side, we obtain h naught by beta is equal to 50 over omega mu naught. This is done after some alteration by cross multiplying the factors. Let us mark this as equation 2. So having marked those two equations, multiplying equation 1 and 2, we get h square h naught square is equal to 50 square times epsilon by mu naught. So here we need to notice one thing. This epsilon and mu naught, we are taking epsilon naught as the value equal to 10 raised to minus 9 over 36 pi farads per meter, and we are going to take mu naught as 4 pi into 10 power minus 7 henries per meter. So by applying so, we are going to get h naught square is equal to 50 square into 10 power minus 9 over 36 pi into 4 pi into 10 power minus 7. By taking square root on either side, we get h naught is equal to plus or minus 50 into epsilon under the root epsilon naught by mu naught. So h naught will give us a value plus or minus 50 by 120 pi. Therefore, the coefficient h naught can take a value plus or minus 0.1326. By using the same two expressions, dividing equation 1 by 2, that is 1 divided by 2, we do this application, then we are going to get beta square will be equal to omega square mu naught into epsilon naught. So if you remember, mu naught into epsilon naught is one unique factor. Under the root is a very important formula, which is nothing but the speed of light. We can also find by applying these two values here under the root, we shall obtain a value of speed of light, which is 3 into 10 raised to 8 meters per second. So beta will be a value which is equal to plus or minus omega times of mu naught into epsilon naught, which is nothing but plus or minus, but this is 1 over c. So this is omega by c. So this will give us plus or minus omega is 10 raised to 6, c is 3 into 10 raised to 8. By applying or finding the value, we get the beta value as 3.333 into 10 power minus 3 as the answer. So now we have found out the values of h naught and also beta. So this under the root mu naught into epsilon naught will give us the inverse of c, where the c value is 3 into 10 power 8 meters per second. So 1 over mu naught into epsilon naught is nothing but a speed of light, which is a constant called c. So this is how we are going to make use of phasors to manipulate the Maxwell's equation and thereby making the complexity involved in the problem simpler. So therefore, this is a very simple example to illustrate the use of phasors, and we shall consider more problems when we deal with electromagnetic waves in a material medium later. So thank you for watching this video.